Welcome to the launch of the Southeast West Virginia Solar Co-op. We are excited to launch this local solar co-op with this online information session, and folks are just coming in. I see attendees joining us now, so thank you all for taking your lunch hour on this Monday to join us. My name is Autumn Long. I am a Regional Field Director with Solar United Neighbors, and also joining me today is my colleague Jessica. She works out of DC with Solar United Neighbors and will be helping facilitate this webinar today. We are also excited to have a couple of our great local partner organization representatives with us today, and I will introduce them directly. I will start off with a little bit of housekeeping. Probably we're all very used to Zoom by now, but just so everyone is on the same page, if you want to join with audio, you can access your mic and speakers for computer audio. You can also dial in using a telephone if it works better for you. And if you have a question at any point throughout the webinar, you can please submit them in the chat box. And when you ask questions in the chat box, be sure to ask it to all attendees, not just panelists, so then everyone who is seeing the webinar can see your question, and they might have the same question too, so that lets everyone see what everyone else is asking. You can also raise your hand. There's a feature there on the toolbar, and then we can verbally unmute you and allow you to speak. We are recording this webinar. We will share a link to the recording afterward to everyone who RSVP'd, and we'll also post a copy of the recording on the Solar Co-op webpage. So that's our Zoom housekeeping 101 here. So I'm going to jump right in. Again, I'm Autumn Long with Solar United Neighbors, and I want to tell you a little bit about who we are, and then we'll be introducing our local co-op partners and talking about our history as an organization before we dive into the meat of this presentation about solar technology and economics and the co-op process. So just so we're all on the same page about who I am and why we're talking about solar today, Solar United Neighbors is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are dedicated to helping people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. And we do that by organizing local solar co-op programs like this one, and I'll tell you a lot more about what that means if you're not familiar with the concept of a solar co-op. We also do a lot of solar policy advocacy and a lot of public education around solar. So we love to facilitate these local solar co-op groups, and it's really critical to work with local partner organizations, and we're excited to have a great lineup of local partners for this new Southeast West Virginia solar co-op. We've got Bethlehem Farms down in Talcott, West Virginia, the Greenbrier River Watershed Association, New Roots Community Farm based out of Fayetteville, Secret Santa Society, and Waterstone Outdoors, two very important businesses in Fayetteville. The Lewisburg Green Team is partnering with us, the West Virginia Rivers Coalition, Keeper of the Mountains Foundation, and we have evergreen statewide partners in the League of Women Voters of West Virginia and the West Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club. So I'm excited to be working with all of these partner organizations to promote the co-op. And I'm also excited to note that I just got word from the mayor of Fayetteville that City Council voted last Thursday evening to formally partner with us on this co-op. So the town of Fayetteville is going to be joining as a co-op partner. And that also brings me to my next comment, which is to thank our two guests at this webinar today, including Ann Cavalier, who is the mayor of the city of Smithers, West Virginia. And Dr. Cavalier, Mayor Cavalier, is very interested in solar and promoting solar in the city of Smithers. So she and Autumn Crow are joining us today to let us know about why they support solar and the co-op process. So thank you, Mayor Cavalier and Ms. Crow, for taking the time to join us. I want to just introduce you all. To tell our audience a little bit about each of you. Mayor Cavalier is the current mayor of the city of Smithers in Fayette County, the heart of almost heaven, as she calls it. And Mayor Cavalier has a doctorate from Virginia Tech, where she focused on finance and human resource management. She had a 30-year academic career serving as a full-time tenured faculty member of the College of Business at West Virginia Tech from 1978 to 2008, and held administrative posts that allowed her to work in economic development across West Virginia. After retiring from West Virginia Tech, she served as the federal West Virginia and Maryland State Economic Development Representative for the U.S. Economic Development Administration for 6 years. And after her federal retirement, she launched Cavalier and Associates Business Development Consulting to help with economic development projects in West Virginia and surrounding states. So after that retirement, she transitioned from consultant to elected public servant. She served 4 years on the Smithers City Council, and in 2018 was persuaded to run for mayor. So thank you so much for joining us, Mayor Cavalier. And I also want to introduce Autumn Crow. This is maybe the only webinar that you will be on this year in which there are 2 Autumns presenting. So cheers to that, my fellow Autumn. And Autumn Crow grew up in West Virginia. She has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Protection and a Master of Science in Soil Science from West Virginia University. Her experience as an environmental scientist includes working for environmental consulting firms and tribal governments in Alaska and Nevada. She now serves as the staff scientist at West Virginia Rivers Coalition, where she has worked since 2015. She also volunteers with Greenbrier River Watershed Association, and she founded the Lewisburg Green Team. So Autumn Crow represents 3 of our 10 local co-op partners today. So thank you both for joining us. And I'd like to turn it over to each of you in turn to share a little bit about yourselves, your organization, or city, in your case, Mayor Cavalier, and why you're excited to promote solar in your local community. And we'll start with you, Mayor Cavalier. And you are muted.
Okay, sorry about that. You'd think after all these Zooms, I would know to unmute myself. So thank you, Autumn. I'm glad to be here. And to my co-guest here, Autumn, I'm glad to be on this, this guest list with you. I told Autumn Long earlier when we talked that I have a couple of reasons why I'm really, really interested in your co-op and hopefully our co-op. First of all, I'm a child of the 60s. As you can tell by my multiple retirements, I've been out here in the work world for quite a while. And so I'm a child of the 60s. I grew up wanting to save the planet, and I've never gotten over that. And I see this as yet another way to help with that process. I've become the mayor of Smithers. This was not a lifelong dream. This was something that I literally fell into, and I'm glad I did. One of the things I tell people when they ask me, so how's this mayor gig going? I tell them, well, I'm having a blast, but I'm driving everybody else crazy. I am trying very hard to push us forward in a lot of ways. One of those ways is we did accept a donation of the Valley Elementary School. That's 32,000 square feet on one level, flat roof, flat black roof, and we sit out in the middle of the valley, and so we have no shade at any point. I'm excited to be able to think about working with you and working with others to put a whole solar array on that roof. Small town mayors these days have it tough. Revenue is shrinking. businesses are closing, but costs keep going up. And one of the very critical things that we must do as mayors and leaders of our town are to provide services like collecting the garbage, keeping the streets clean, keeping law enforcement out there to make sure everyone's safe. Well, those costs keep going up every year. Our utility costs keep going up every year. And beyond providing just those critical minimal services, I really want to create a better quality of life for the residents in our area. To do that, I'm going to have to find ways to cut costs so that I can apply those savings to helping our residents. I see solar energy as a real plus and can help us save those funds so that we can then reinvest in our community and in our people. So I'm gung-ho. I hope we can make this work for all of us, and I look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Cavalier. It's really nice to have you on board and to know that you and the leaders of the City of Smithers are interested in pursuing solar energy for the city, and I look forward to talking with you more about that soon. And I'll turn it over next to my fellow Autumn Crow of West Virginia Rivers and Lewisburg Green Team.
Thanks, Autumn, and thank you for the invitation to join. This will actually be my second involvement in solar co-op, but hopefully from a different angle this time. So like Autumn mentioned, I'm the staff scientist for West Virginia Rivers Coalition. If you're not familiar with West Virginia Rivers Coalition, we're a statewide nonprofit working on water policy and advocacy. So we work to ensure that our rivers are drinkable, fishable, swimmable, both now and for future generations. And one of the things that we were finding as West Virginians is that we're all starting to experience the impacts of climate change. So West Virginia Rivers, seeing our rivers impacted by these changes, wanted to get more involved in climate research and policy. If you want to learn more about climate change, we hosted a series of webinars with researchers, and those are available on our website, wvrivers.org. And we recently published with a group of partners a citizen's guide to climate change. So those resources are available on our website. But what the research is showing is that West Virginians are going to experience more flooding, more heat waves, more droughts. And this is going to have an impact on our health and the environment and our economy. So it's really important to invest in clean energy. And so we're really excited to be able to partner with the Solar United Neighbors to help form this solar co-op. And I'm also excited as it on a personal level, because I'm also a small business owner and I run an Airbnb. So I'm hoping to actually be a participant in the solar co-op this year. So, solar, like Mayor Cavalier said, it makes sense for our state, for our economy, to provide jobs, just to create a more equitable economy and a better vision for the future of West Virginia. So we are really excited. I'm really excited. West Virginia Rivers is really excited. The Greenbrier River Watershed is really excited. And as founder of Lewisburg Green Team, I'm really excited to take part in this solar co-op.
Thank you so much, Autumn. Thanks to both of you for joining us today. Attendees, if you all have any questions for any of us throughout the course of this presentation, just feel free to share those questions in the chat. And my colleague Jessica and I will answer them as they come in. I'll pause at a couple points throughout the presentation to make sure that we're all still on the same page and to answer any questions that come up. I just want to kind of close the loop about our organization and give you some background about Solar United Neighbors and what we do so you understand our model and our mission. And we got started back in 2007 in Washington, D.C., where our founder and executive director, Anya Schoolman, lives. At that point, her son, Walter, and his buddy, Diego, they saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth and got very mobilized to act on climate change in their local community of Mount Pleasant in DC, and came home and told Anya, you know, we got to go solar. Let's go solar on our roof. And although she thought that was a lovely idea, she really had no idea how to navigate the process of going solar, how the technology worked, who to contract with, how much it should cost, how long it would last, any of these questions about what makes a good investment in local solar energy. So she decided if she was going to go to all the trouble of learning all of this stuff about taxes and costs and technology and payments and financing and interconnection agreements and policies, then she would try and get her neighbors to go solar together as a group. And so that's how the very first solar co-op got started. She dispatched Walter and Diego into the neighborhood with flyers and handouts and got about 50 people to join the Mount Pleasant Solar Cooperative, which became our first model solar co-op. And so from that local neighborhood beginning, we've grown to an organization working on the ground in 12 states throughout the country, including West Virginia, where we've worked since 2014. And here in West Virginia, we have organized over 20 solar co-ops all over the state. And we've helped over 160 West Virginia homeowners and businesses go solar directly through those local solar co-op groups. And I've been working with Solar United Neighbors for about 4 years now, which doesn't seem like that long. So it's kind of interesting to think about how much time has gone by. But I'm really excited to see interest in solar continue to grow in West Virginia and to continue to help more West Virginians be able to access good local solar energy. So that's what we do and who we are. The co-op membership is the main thing we're going to be talking about today. This is a group local program in which we get at least a few dozen people together to select a single installer to service everyone in that area. And the benefits include, you know, this bulk group negotiation to get really good competitive pricing, good quality installations, and our help throughout the process. It's totally free to join a solar co-op, and you also get a free 1-year membership at Solar United Neighbors when you join. If you live in an area of the state that is not eligible for this Southeast West Virginia Solar Co-op, we can also help you go solar on a case-by-case basis through our individual membership program. And that's an $85 fee where we can help connect you with local solar installers, review proposals that you receive, and work through that entire process on a one-on-one basis. So that's an option for folks that you might know in other areas of the state who are interested in going solar, but don't live in this Southeast West Virginia region. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the main meat of the presentation now, and we always like to start with a brief overview of solar technology, so everyone's on the same page about what we're talking about. And then once we get that Solar 101 part worked out, we will move on to explain a little bit more about the co-op process, and then hopefully you'll all stick around to get the answers you really want, which are about the solar economics, financing, how much will it cost me, how does it save me money? All of those questions will be answered over the course of the coming hour. So let's start off with the technology stuff so we're all on the same page. We're talking here about solar PV or solar photovoltaic technology. And solar PV technology converts sunlight into electricity. So a solar panel or solar module is the more technical term for it. A solar panel works by the individual solar cells, which actually do that work of converting sunlight into electricity. Those solar cells are wired together into the module, They are encapsulated in tempered glass and a backsheet framed with aluminum framing, and a junction box is wired into the back of each module. And then each module is in turn wired together to form what we call a solar array. So the solar array is that series of modules wired together, each of which is producing a certain amount of electricity, and that builds upon itself to the size array you need to power your home or property. When you're thinking about solar, you're going to hear a couple different pieces of terminology that are important to know. We talk about solar array sizing in terms of kilowatts. A kilowatt is 1,000 watts, and a watt is a measurement of electrical energy production. So the actual capacity of your system, the size of your system, its ability to produce energy is measured in kilowatts. A somewhat different concept is that of kilowatt hours. Kilowatt hours is a measurement of energy, which is power over time. So the type of measurement that you see on your electric bill at the end of each month, that is a measurement of the kilowatt hours that you have consumed each month in your home or your business, the amount of electrical energy that you've consumed and that you're paying your utility for. So don't get hung up on these terms too much. It's something that we want to be sure you're aware of, and you will see when you receive a proposal for solar from an installer, the array will be sized in terms of kilowatts. So this gives you an idea of what that sizing means. And most typical rooftop home solar arrays are somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 12 kilowatts. 2 is very small, 12 is quite large. I believe about 6 to 7 kilowatts is average here in West Virginia. So in addition to the modules or individual solar panels, the other main equipment that's included in a solar array is the inverter. We'll talk a little bit more about inverters on the next slide. And then the racking system that actually connects your solar modules to the roof or the ground. So the modules, the inverter, and the racking are the 3 main pieces of equipment, types of equipment that are included in a typical residential or small commercial solar array. There are a couple different types of inverters that are very commonly used in solar. And the inverter, I think of the inverter as sort of the brains of the operation. The inverter does the very important job of converting the DC or direct current power that your solar panels produce into the AC or alternating current power that is used by your home's appliances and electronic devices. So the inverter is a piece of electrical equipment that does that DC to AC conversion. It also continually monitors your system's electrical output and its connection to the electrical grid. So it's making sure everything is working properly, that the power flow is correct, and that everything's integrated with the local electric system. There are a couple of different types of inverters on the market today. The more traditional type is called a string inverter. It is a piece of centralized equipment about the size of a microwave that usually is installed somewhere near your electric meter. And with a string inverter, all of the modules flow into that single piece of equipment with that DC current. String inverters are often paired with DC optimizers, which are small pieces of electric equipment that go on the back of each solar module, and they help to balance out any differentiation and power flow between modules to optimize, as the name suggests, optimize the efficiency of your overall solar array. The other type of inverter is called a microinverter. And unlike a centralized string inverter, a microinverter is a smaller piece of equipment that goes on the back of each solar module and makes that DC to AC power conversion at the module level. So both are performing the same role, and they're just doing it in slightly different ways. different installers work with microinverters versus string inverters and optimizers, and different applications might be better for one or the other. So that's a conversation that you can have with your solar installer to understand their options and why they've made the choices that they have in a proposal that they give to you. And then the other main piece of equipment that is used in a typical solar array is the racking that connects the modules to your roof. And that's an important aspect of the array because the installer is usually making a penetration into your roof. And so you can see here, these modules are being racked onto an asphalt shingle roof, and they're using that flashing and other safety mechanisms to ensure that there's no roof leaks, that everything's done correctly. Solar can connect to many types of roof. The shingle is very common. This is a standing seam metal roof, and that is a nice option for solar because you can actually clamp onto the seams without having to penetrate down into the roofing material. So that's a popular option. We can install solar on flat industrial roofs using ballasts or other types of installation, racking, and mounting. So there's a solution for almost any roof type. And if your roof is not particularly well suited for solar, the ground mount is another option. And that's pretty common here in West Virginia, where folks have tend to have a little bit of space around their homes. You might have a large yard or property where you can mount solar panels on the ground. And there are some pros and cons to ground mounts versus roof mounts. Ground mounts are more accessible than roof mounts for a solar owner, so you can access the panels a little more easily to clean them if they get dirty, or to wipe snow off them if they have snow accumulation in the winter. That's not something we recommend that you do with roof mounted panels. We don't want people climbing around up on their roofs in the snow to sweep off their panels. The downsides to ground mounts are that, they tend to be more expensive than roof mounts because of the additional mounting hardware and the concrete and the conduit and the trenching that's required to get that energy from the ground mount location to your electric meter and to your home's electrical service panel. And the other main drawback of a ground mount is that it takes up space that otherwise would be used on your roof, where the space isn't, usable for yard space like it would be with a ground mount. So both roof mounts and ground mounts are completely feasible options, and most installers will offer both options. Typically, a solar array doesn't require any significant modifications to a standard home electrical service panel. If you have a very old home with a small service, electrical service, you may need to do an upgrade. That's something your installer will check on when he does a site visit to see what your home looks like and what kinds of options are available to wire in the solar array to your electric service. Mostly it's a very simple connection though. And when you're thinking about going solar on your property, there are a few things for you to consider. Mayor Cavalier mentioned the building in Smithers that has wonderful sun exposure all throughout the day because it's out in the open in the middle of the valley. So that's one thing. If you're located in a very shady location, like I happen to be, my home is down in a little holler with a lot of large trees around it. So unfortunately, it's not a great option for solar on site for me. And we don't want you to cut down a lot of trees to go solar on your home. If you have old trees that are going to need to be cut down in the future, that's one thing, but those trees are providing important environmental services for you in your home. And so when you're thinking about whether or not your roof is good for solar, think about specifically what the south-facing side of your roof looks like. A southern exposure is best for solar. A south-facing roof gets the most hours of sunlight over the course of the day, over the course of the year, throughout the seasons. If your roof is not facing directly south, that's okay. East and west facing roofs can also work really well for solar, especially if you can do both east and west sides. In general, a north facing roof is not recommended for solar in the northern hemisphere. It just doesn't get enough hours of direct sunlight to make that a good investment. So south, west, east and west, also good. No shade, ideal. If you've got a little bit of shading in the morning or evening, that's okay. Solar panels are more efficient than ever, and it's a case-by-case basis. And one of the things that we do when you join the co-op is take a look at your roof using mapping software. And my colleague Jessica, who's facilitating this webinar today, she'll take a look at your roof and let you know right away whether it looks like it's going to be a good fit for solar, or if it looks like maybe it's too shaded. And we'll give you some feedback about that so you know what to expect. The other thing to mention is roof condition. If you have an aging roof that you know you're going to need to have replaced in the next few years, if you've got, 15 years on 20-year shingles or 20 years, 25-year shingles, I would really recommend that you replace your roof before you install solar. It will cost you money to have to call back your installer a couple years from now and ask them to take off all your solar panels in order to reshingle your roof and then reinstall the solar panels on the new roof. So if you're going to be replacing your roof in the near future, it's a good idea to wrap that into those discussions before you go solar and make sure you have a good roof in good condition to host those solar panels. I see something in the chat. Okay. Right, Jessica's mentioning if you join the co-op, then you'll get that roof review right away. We'll let you know whether it looks like your site is a good fit for solar. So when we're talking about solar PV, generally we're talking about grid tied solar, meaning you will remain tied to the electric grid. You will continue to receive electricity from your utility provider, and your solar that's located on your roof or on your property will help to offset that annual electric cost for you. And how that works is pretty cool. The solar array, of course, is mounted, in this case, on your roof. That DC power that your solar panels produce flows through your solar inverter, where it is converted into AC power. The AC power is used by your home's appliances and electronic devices. It flows into your electric service panel and powers your home just like the power you would get from your utility company. When it's a nice sunny day and you are producing more solar energy than you're using on site, the excess then flows out through your electric meter into the local electric grid and right down the local distribution lines to the next house down the street or the next property down the road. So you're actually producing energy for yourself and you're contributing energy to the local electric system to help offset your neighbors and other community members' electricity loads as well. That's part of what really excites me about distributed solar energy. It changes our relationship with our energy system. Instead of passively consuming energy that's supplied to us by centralized utility companies, we are able to become producers of that resource for ourselves and our local communities, and to share that local energy produced on our roofs and in our homes with our neighbors and our community members. And the really good news is that you get credited for that on your utility bill. There is a policy in place in West Virginia called net metering. And net metering basically allows electricity to flow to and from your meter as an electric customer. So at the end of the month, you will get a bill from your utility company that calculates the total amount of electricity you've consumed from the grid and subtracts the amount of electricity that your solar panels have produced that is shared through your electric meter. And so you will end up paying the difference between what you produced and what you consumed. The law requires West Virginia utilities to do this, so you can conceivably offset, you can conceivably offset up to 100% of your annual electricity consumption with on-site solar. If you produce more solar energy than you use in a single month, those credits will roll over on your electric bill from one month to the next. So you can build up a bank of credits with solar energy in the summer when there's a lot of good sunlight, long sunlight hours and solar resources. You can build up a bank of credits to then draw down on through the winter months when there are less hours of sunlight available to power your solar panels. And so your installer will look at your electric bills to understand how much energy you consume annually, and they will size a solar array to offset as much as they can, as close as they can to 100% of your annual energy consumption given the space available and the size of your budget. If you overproduce greater than that 100% annual production, you will not get paid back by your utility. Net metering in West Virginia is always a bill credit. It's never a payment. So that credit will continue to roll over from one month to the next, but you won't ever get a check back from your utility. It will just be offsetting your electricity costs. And one more important note I want to make about how grid-tied solar works. In a simple grid-tied solar system, if your power goes out, you will not have backup power during a grid outage from your solar array. You need batteries if you want to have that backup power available during grid outages. The way I like to explain this is that solar panels produce energy, but they do not store energy. It's batteries that actually store that energy that is created by your solar panels and keeps it available for you to use during a grid outage. So when the grid goes down, your inverter actually automatically shuts down your solar array. And this is a safety mechanism to prevent your solar array from backfeeding power into the grid and potentially injuring a line worker who's working to repair the problem that caused that grid outage. So if you are interested in backup power during grid outages, you will want to pursue the option of battery storage. Battery storage is a good idea if you have frequent and prolonged utility outages, especially if you have critical loads at home that you want to maintain in the event of a grid outage. That critical load could be medical equipment, a well pump. In many rural areas of the state, we use well water, and so having water is certainly a critical need. Or if you're concerned about disaster preparedness and emergency preparedness. Those are all valid reasons to look into energy storage when you go solar. I will, be frank about the fact that the battery systems do add quite significant cost onto a typical solar installation. So this is just a very, very ballpark example of a solar array. The cost of the entire system and installation was $15,500. The addition of backup battery storage was an additional $9,000. Now, those prices, I feel that they're probably a little more affordable now than they were, but this is still in the ballpark of what you can expect to pay for backup critical load battery storage. It's also important to understand that when the grid goes down and you're relying on battery storage, you're not going to be able to power everything in your home just like you would from the grid. So you're going to need to pick and choose the most critical loads in your home to connect to that battery backup storage. And those critical loads might be, certainly a well pump if you have that, some lights, refrigeration, maybe your TV is a critical load for you, maybe an internet modem or router, these sorts of things. You probably will not be using your central air or HVAC system. You probably won't be running your dryer or your dishwasher during grid outages. You'll be really careful about consuming that stored energy as efficiently as possible throughout the course of the outage. If you want to know more about battery storage, because it is a very big and complex topic, we have a downloadable guide for homeowners who are interested in solar plus battery storage. And the link on the screen is solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. Okay. And to wrap up this section, to wrap up this technology section, I just want to go over a few like frequently asked questions that folks often have about solar. One of those is about warranties and system life. And it's important to understand that this is a long-term investment. Solar panels today are warranted for 25 to 30-year power production by the manufacturer. So we're looking at very resilient and long-term pieces of equipment here. So you can expect to have those solar panels producing power for you for decades into the future. And for 25 to 30 years, that power production will be warranted by the manufacturer. Even when that warranty expires, there's no reason why the solar panels won't keep working for even longer into the future. So the panels are warranted, the inverters are warranted, and those warranties depend on the type of inverter and the manufacturer. String inverters are typically warranted for 10 to 12 years and with extendable 25-year warranties. Microinverters are typically warranted for 25 years. And then finally, you also will get a warranty, a labor warranty from the installer that works with you on your solar installation. And that labor warranty will cover all of the work that the installer does, including any roof penetrations that they make on your home. That will all be warranted as well. And I see a question. I'll let Jessica manage that and we'll follow up right at the end of this slide. Another consideration is homeowners insurance. In addition to all those warranties on the equipment and the workmanship of the installation, if something were to happen like a natural disaster, a storm, a tree falls on your house and and breaks your solar panels and your roof, your homeowner's insurance will cover that. But you have to let them know that you went solar so they know that they're going to be covering the cost of any sort of, act of God or nature or natural disaster that should occur that would damage your solar panels. So you typically won't see increases in your homeowner's insurance rates because of solar. If you go solar and your homeowner's insurance decides that they're going to drastically increase your rates, I would encourage you to shop around for other homeowners insurance providers. Some even offer green discounts for folks who are making energy improvements and upgrades on their homes. In terms of maintenance, I'm happy to report that solar PV is generally pretty maintenance free. It does not require, frequent washing or cleaning in this area of the country. We get plenty of rain, and that rainfall generally does a good job of keeping the dust and pollen off the solar panels and keeping them clean. If they get covered with snow, they will not be producing energy for you, but because you're building up that bank of credits through net metering on days that does have good solar production, you can offset those days in winter when your panels may be covered in snow. And because they are dark and smooth, the snow generally slides off the panels faster than it does any other part of your roof. So usually you don't lose very many days of production due to snow cover in this area of the country. If you happen to live in an HOA, you may have to consider some site restrictions on where you can place the solar or how it looks, but we do have a solar access law in West Virginia that prevents HOAs from outright banning solar altogether. So if you want to go solar and you go to your HOA board and they're concerned about anything involved in the installation process, that's a point at which Solar United Neighbors can help you, and I can step in to do some, outreach and education with your HOA board members and explain to them how solar benefits their members and how it can benefit neighborhood property values as well. Likewise, if you live in a historic district, you'll have to have a review from your historic review board probably and get a permit from them to go solar. That's another point at the process in which Solar United Neighbors can help and provide resources and support. So, okay, that is the end of the technology section. So I want to make sure to stop and take a minute to ask if anyone has questions about anything we've covered or anything we didn't cover that you are curious to know about.
Looks like Beth has a question and she'd like to ask it on audio. So I'll go ahead and unmute you now, Beth.
Hi, Beth.
I'm unmuted. I have a question.
Sure.
This is in, I think it goes in the technology section. I have a generator that is wired in to go on automatically when the grid goes down. How is that going to fit in with the solar system?
Yeah, that is fine. That is very common in this area of the country, especially after the derecho that came through about maybe 10 or more years ago now that caused so many people to lose power for a week or more. And so a lot of folks do have those whole house generators. They can be wired in with your solar array easily, and that's a fine option for emergency backup power as opposed to battery storage. If you already have that, then you're good to go. Any other questions before we move on to talk about solar co-ops? Okay. If anything does come up, feel free to ask it in the chat bar or raise your hand, and Jessica will unmute you when we get to the next stopping point. I'm just going to briefly talk about how the solar co-op process works. And really our solar co-ops are local bulk purchase programs or buying clubs that allow you to get a great value on the installation and our support as a third-party installer neutral nonprofit organization throughout the process. It also helps you connect with other solar supporters in your area and to grow this movement of solar support and solar interest in our local communities in West Virginia and throughout the country. So the process begins by learning about solar. Congratulations, you are doing that right now by attending this info session or watching the recording, visiting the website. Just because you're here doesn't mean you've joined the co-op. We need to have you fill out that co-op sign-up form where we get some information about your location, and property, and your interests in solar you want out of this process. So you can follow up on the website solarunitedneighbors.org/southeastwv to sign up for this solar co-op. And we would also ask you to please spread the word to your friends and neighbors and family in this area of the state to let them know that this is an opportunity to go solar together with the Southeast West Virginia Solar Co-op. Once we get about 30 participants, and I may be a little flexible on that and go with a little fewer numbers than that, given the, rural nature of West Virginia. But once we get a couple dozen to 30 participants in our co-ops, we issue a request for proposals from solar installers who then bid on the group. And we take we do our due diligence to review each bid in great detail. We check their licensing and certifications. We follow up on spec sheets of equipment, their staffing. They make sure to call their references. So we get all of this data from each bid. We ask solar co-ops to volunteer on a committee to review the bids and to select one installer to service everyone in the group based on the group's priorities and needs. So one installer will then service each member of the co-op. They will schedule a site visit with you. They will talk to you about your needs and your interests and your budget and your electric consumption, and they will develop a solar proposal specifically for you, tailored to those needs that you have. You can decide whether or not to sign a contract with that installer based on the proposal, and that's the only point at which money starts changing hands. When you sign an individual contract with the solar installer, there's no fee to join the co-op or to go through that process up to that point. So once you sign a contract with the installer, then they will pull the permits they need to get started on the installation. The actual installation generally only takes a day or two. It can be a very easy, slick process. And then they will need to file with your utility company to get you interconnected with the utility with that net metering system. So the permitting and interconnection can sometimes take several weeks to process that paperwork. And then after that's all up and running and you're producing solar and everyone in the co-op has gone solar, then maybe someday we'll be able to have a party again. We haven't been able to do much in person this whole year, but that is generally the final step, is to get together and celebrate our success with solar with a party. So just to reiterate, it is the members of the co-op that select the installer. We really want this to be a local, democratically led and organized process. And when you sign up for the co-op, we ask what your priorities are when it comes to an installer and the criteria used to select them. So if price is really your main concern and interest, you can let us know that. Equipment, warranties, the locality of the company, you can let us know what you're looking for in an installer, and the selection committee represents everyone in the co-op to try and make the selection that's a best fit for the group as a whole. Okay, and I am going to move pretty quickly since we only have a few minutes left before the end of the hour. If anyone has questions about the co-op process, please go ahead and drop them in the chat box and we will answer them as I move through the last piece of this puzzle, which is the economics of solar and how it can benefit you financially. So solar is priced by the watt, not by the panel. So when you get an installer's proposal or contract, you'll see the system is sized in terms of kilowatts. And so if you are being asked to pay $9,000 for a 3,000 watt or 3 kilowatt system, that means the system is priced at $3 a watt by the installer. And that's a comprehensive price. It includes everything about the installation. These are turnkey operations. The installer is going to do everything, including, pulling the permits and paperwork that they need to make sure you're up and running with your utility and your local zoning jurisdiction. So these are also long-term investments, as I mentioned before. At least a few decades, you will be producing power from your solar panels into the future. So it is a really good long-term investment. Given our current residential electricity rates, we see about a 10-year typical payback time for that initial upfront investment. And after that, you are just making free energy for yourself for another couple decades into the future. So as our utility electricity prices increase, you're going to be saving even more money. You're essentially locking in the cost of your electric bill for the portion of your solar that is produced by your solar array, at least, for decades into the future. And so as electricity costs rise, the value of your investment likewise rises. Solar still has a bit of a reputation as being expensive and out of the typical person's cost range, but costs have really come down in recent years, and especially in the past 10 years or so. Even since I've been working in the solar industry, I have seen costs just plummet in terms of the cost of equipment and installations. So it's more affordable than ever, and it's a better investment than ever. It's an excellent return on investment. And there is a federal tax credit in place that is currently stepping down I'm going to skip this slide to show you about the tax credit. Because this co-op installations for this co-op will not be taking place until the first quarter of 2021, I'm anticipating that co-op members will take the 2021 level tax credit, which is 22% of total project cost. The tax credit was at 30%, and it started stepping down this year. So it's now at 26% in 2020, and it will step down to 22% next year in 2021. And it will then expire altogether for residential systems, and it will decrease to a permanent 10% for commercial systems in 2022. So 2021 is really the last sweet spot of a year that you can get a really substantial tax credit for that portion of your solar array. This is just an example pricing chart that shows, based on our average recent co-op pricing of about $264 a watt. These are the prices that you would pay for those system sizes. Your system will be sized based on your specific needs and budget, but this just gives you a range to anticipate what you would be seeing up front, the net cost after the tax credit, and then every year as you save money on your electric bill, you're recouping that investment. And you can see over the course of those 25 years, you're going to be saving a lot of money, thousands and tens of thousands of dollars through going solar on your home. And again, the tax credit is stepping down. In 2021, when installations for this co-op will be going on, you will receive a 22% tax credit on your investment, and it will go away in 2022. So I do encourage you to pull the trigger sooner rather than later while the tax credit is still in place. You can finance your solar system through loans, through your local bank or financial institution. A home equity loan or line of credit is a good way to finance solar, and we have really low interest rates right now, which is helpful. You can also, if you are a commercial business or a commercial farm, you may be eligible for grant funding through the USDA Rural Energy for America program, or REAP. So if you're a commercial entity and you want to learn more about that process, please follow up with me individually or reach out to us through the co-op process and let us know you're interested in REAP funding for a commercial farm or rural small business. And we have a lot of resources and grant writing assistance that we can offer to share with you for accessing that REAP grant. Okay, so I only have a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure that we reiterate joining the co-op is the next step. If you want to do that and haven't done so yet, go to the link on the screen here, solarunitedneighbors.org/SoutheastWV. You can also sign up for our Facebook group and our listserv if you want to get more looped into what's going on with solar in West Virginia. And we also have a whole month's worth of programming coming up in October, so I want to make sure I plug our National Solar Congress. Check out solarcongress.org. Including tonight, we have a Solar 101 info session, which covers a lot of the technology piece of this presentation. So if you know folks who are interested in solar, couldn't make it to this presentation, point them toward our Solar 101 tonight. And check out the Solar Congress website for more information. And that is a picture of our website. There you go. It is a useful resource. You should definitely check it out. There's tons of information about solar there. You can join the solar co-op, and that is my contact information if you want to follow up with me individually. I really appreciate our partners, Times, Autumn Crow, and Mayor Cavalier. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we have a couple minutes left, so there are a few questions I see in the chat bar. Jessica, if you want to wrangle questions for me, I can see what I can answer in the last couple minutes we have.
Sure. We have a question from Robert. He asks, can someone without a good solar site participate?
We really want co-op members to be able to go solar with the co-op. Not everyone does end up going solar, but if you want to just get involved with Solar United Neighbors and help support solar in your community without having a good site for solar yourself, I encourage you to visit our website and sign up to volunteer with us. You can follow the co-op that way. We'll be sending out co-op updates on our listserv and on Facebook. But we do ask that co-op members sign up who really are interested in going solar on their homes or businesses.
Thank you. And we have a question from Ray and Mary. They asked how many members have signed up so far?
That's a good question. I think there were about half a dozen the last I checked. Jessica, do you happen to know?
Yeah, I think the last we had on Friday, it was about 6 or 7.
Okay, so we've got half a dozen or so folks. We would love to get 2 dozen before we issue the RFP. So please spread the word to your local friends and neighbors and have them join the co-op. So I'm going to wrap up. We are at 1 o'clock. Thank you all so much for spending this hour with us today. Definitely follow up with Jessica and me if you have more questions about the co-op or anything you heard today. solarunitedneighbors.org/southeastwv is the co-op webpage. And thanks to Autumn Crow and Mayor Cavalier for joining us too. We hope to see you all at a future Solar Congress event very soon. Have a great day. Bye.